All right, guys, welcome to another episode. It's Zaid with you from No Gratification, and it's another month. I think I've got somehow, strangely, I had two articles left on my Medium, and now I visited Medium again, and they said I still have two free articles. So, yeah, I gained a free article from Medium, this website where there's a lot of writers and philosophers on this website, but a lot of them are just lost in their thinking. And kudos to them, they're trying to understand life, and a lot of them, they're very confident they've worked it out, but they're secular. They have secular thoughts, and so a lot of their thinking is just completely garbage. Like, I hate to be mean. I'm not trying to be mean, but it's wrong, man. It's wrong. And sadly, it misleads a lot of people, and these people are away from the truth. And so let's jump into another article from a man who is definitely away from the truth. He writes, if you want to be fearless, ask yourself this question every day. Every day, ask this question, guys. And this is from Brian Penny from Mind Cafe. That's the name of his art writing space, Mind Cafe. Can you imagine a guy called Brian Penny? Like, his last name's Penny, and he's from Mind Cafe, and he wants to tell you how to be fearless. Like he's drinking like a frappuccino, like he's like dipping his cookie in his like coffee. He's like, I'm gonna tell you how to be fearless, girlfriend. Anyway, I shouldn't make fun of this guy straight away. I'm a jerk. Oh, God forgive me for my jerkness. Because the best things in life are often on the other side of fear. That's true. That is absolutely true. Someone once told me the definition of hell. Once your last day on earth, the person you could have become will be the person you could have become will meet the person you became. No, that's not hell. Hell is actually hell. Hell is actually like fire and punishment and terrible, terrible punishment and pain. And see, that's what happens. Like when people they invest so much in this life, the last day is the biggest hell for them because it's like, oh, I don't want to live with that regret on my deathbed. That's the biggest fear for them, regret on the deathbed, because they don't think there's anything after that. When I first heard this line, it sent shivers down my spine. Why? Because the time I was 35, I had lost my entire adult life through fear. Fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of risk, fear of change, and most of all, fear of anxiety, which I medicated with heroin for 15 years. Man, that's bad. This guy, terrible. He's been a terrible slave to gratification. It's really bad. I feel bad for him, really, that he was, and, I know I was making fun of this guy before, but, we're all slaves to our desires here, and only God can help you be strong, really. I was a slave to my desires all my 20s, so I can relate to that. So yeah, God guide this guy. Like he's trying to change, but man, he was really addicted. This might sound like a sad story, but I was lucky. Pummeled into submission by the most painful night of my life, I received a gift. Call it what you will, a perspective shift, an awakening, or simple dumb luck. It doesn't matter. Life gave me a second chance, and I devoured every second of it. That was in 2013. And with new eyes and fresh start, I began asking myself the question that changed my life. What would I do if I wasn't afraid? All right. 2013, he had the perspective shift in 2013. That's 7 years ago, man. You haven't come up with any other perspective shifts, you know? Like, that's what happened. Like, God destroys your will. Like, you fall into gratification and your will gets absolutely destroyed. And then God gives you a new will if you find him. He gives you a new strength if you find him. And this guy, he's been able to get some strength, some sort of secular strength from some self-help stuff. I don't know, it worked for him, I guess. Anyway, La la, fear becomes a huge role in everyone's life. Maybe you're not addicted to drugs. Maybe you're not struggling with anxiety, but we all have fears to identify what might be holding you back. Are you afraid to ask that person out through fear of rejection? Are you unhappy in your current job? Sometimes it's more subtle than this, but equally destructive. But imagine how life might look if you pushed past those fears. Imagine you began asking yourself, what would I do if I wasn't afraid? How does that work? How do you ask yourself, what would I do if I wasn't afraid? Like, I mean, I would, if I was depressed and had no willpower and I was lying in bed and I had no desire to do anything, I had complete apathy. And I was like, you're right, I'm going to ask myself, what would I do if I wasn't afraid? And I would be so like just fed up. I would be like, who the shit? I'm gonna eat a fucking pizza. I'm gonna eat a whole box of ice creams. Like that's what I used to do when I was depressed. I used to buy a box of ice. It was like a paddle pop stick ice block, 10 pack. I ate it in a whole day. That's how depressed I was. You know, like if I ask myself that question, I'd be like, and how does this help me? I just don't care. Um, so don't know. It's great for him. His advice worked, but the best things in life are on the other side, you know. And what would I do if I wasn't afraid? Another thing is like, what would I do if I wasn't afraid? Like, if we're all afraid, we are all afraid. You can't say you're not afraid. We're all afraid. Like, you're sitting in your mind cafe. You're sitting in your cozy house, talking about fear. What happens if like a bear comes into that house? How scared are you? You're gonna tell me you're gonna face down that bear and say like, what would I do if I wasn't afraid of this bear? Like it's random that a bear would just come into my house. But what would I do if I wasn't afraid? You would be shitting your pants. Any situation where you're close to death, you would be so scared. Especially if you don't believe in God, you would be terribly scared. So don't don't give me this question. And like the thing is, guys, you want to be fearless. It's just God. It's really just God. Like the thing is, if you value God and the afterlife more, like if you really prefer the afterlife more than this life, the fears melt away because you believe in the afterlife. You're not attached to this life so much. So if you get close to death, you're not like attached to this life. You're not hanging on to everything, because of course you're attached. You have like family, loved people you love. You have desires you like. You have things you love. Your pleasures that you love. So you're attached. You don't want to lose them, of course. But if you're more attached to God and you're more attached to the next life, situation comes where you have maybe not even if it's not a death situation, just a situation where you're failing or you're rejected or you're not getting what you want from life. You don't care because the next life's going to give you that, and you're passing God's test. And all anxiety is like you have anxiety, right? This guy's like, you got to face is someone here's like he's like It's like, by telling people how you feel, you might find the partner of your dreams. By sitting with your anxiety instead of avoiding it. You know what anxiety is? Anxiety is uncertainty of the future, right? But if you're certain in the certainty of if you're certain in God's love, then you are certain of the uncertain because you're certain God loves you and you trust his plan. So you move through life without the anxiety because you have full trust in God. Like he has a purpose and he's going to give you what you want. So that's how you overcome fear, by having faith, by believing in God, not going to the mind cafe and getting advice from Brian sitting on his frappes. God bless him. I hope he finds God. Really, God helped him. God put him in the situation. He was addicted to drugs to help find him. And I probably still pray for Brian that he finds God. And I hope if you're secular and you watch this video, you find God too. And peace out. No gratification. Zeta Lasfa.